All right, we've got the final numbers in for the Tulsa County housing market from the end of 2025. And honestly, they're telling a really fascinating story. On one hand, you've got prices that are still climbing. But on the other, you're seeing some really clear signs that the market is starting to cool down. So what's really going on? Let's get into it. If you're thinking about making a move in the Tulsa area this year, well, you're going to want to stick around. We're about to give you all the essential data you need to really get a handle on what the market is doing right now. And we'll do it in just a few minutes. You know, for the last few years, it's been no contest. Sellers have absolutely had the upper hand. But this new data, it's suggesting a real shift is happening. The market is in transition, and figuring out what that actually means for your wallet is, well, it's everything. So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll look at how Tulsa's market is shifting, starting with those still growing price tags. Then we'll jump into why there are suddenly more homes and more choices out there. We'll also cover how the market seems to be catching its breath. And finally, the most important part, we'll lay out a game plan for you, whether you're a buyer or a seller, to help you figure out your next move. Okay, let's just get right to the big one. Price. Because even with some of the cooling trends we're about to talk about, the actual cost of buying a home in Tulsa, yeah, that's still going up. So, at the end of December 2025, the average sale price for a home in Tulsa County was just over $332,000. And that's not just a big number in a vacuum. We're talking about a nearly 7% increase from the exact same time last year. That means affordability is still a huge piece of the puzzle in this market. And this chart really shows you what that looks like. You can see the jump right there. From about $311,000 in December 2024 to over $332,000 just 1 year later. That's a leap of more than $20,000 in only 12 months. Wow. Okay, so prices are up. That means it's a seller's market. Case closed, right? Well, not so fast. The story gets a whole lot more complicated and honestly, a lot more interesting when we start looking at the inventory. Just look at this trend right here. It's a really clear, steady increase in the number of homes on the market. At the end of 2025, there were over 2,200 homes for sale. That is a big jump from the last 2 years. And if you're a buyer, this is fantastic news. It just means you have way more options. Now, to make sense of that number, people in the real estate world use this metric called months supply of inventory, or MSI for short. The idea is pretty simple. If nobody listed another new house for sale, how long would it take to sell every single home that's currently on the market? Right now, the MSI for Tulsa is 3.1 months. Now, historically, that's still pretty low, but it is higher than it's been. And what that tells us is that the market is definitely shifting away from that crazy, fast-paced frenzy of the last few years. It gives buyers a little more breathing room, and maybe even a little more leverage. So we've got a puzzle here, right? Prices are up, but so is the number of homes for sale. The third piece of this puzzle is the pace of the market itself, and that is clearly slowing down. Homes are just taking longer to sell. The average home in December 2025 sat on the market for over 48 days before it sold. That's up from about 41 days the year before. That's an increase of over 18%. It's a surefire sign that the crazy urgency we were seeing has definitely cooled off. And this quote from the report really nails down why that's happening. In plain English, it just means that for every 100 homes that go up for sale, only about 94 of them are actually selling. Last year, that number was over 98. It might not sound like a huge drop, but that little difference is a big reason why inventory is starting to pile up. Okay, so we've looked at the prices, the inventory, and the pace of the market, but what does all of this actually mean for you? Let's translate these numbers into a real game plan, whether you're looking to buy or sell. All right, buyers, listen up. The good news for you is that the landscape has definitely gotten better. Your biggest advantage is choice. With more homes to look at, the odds of you getting stuck in a crazy bidding war are way lower. You have more time to think, more time to negotiate. You might even be able to ask for repairs, which was almost impossible just a little while ago. The main downside, of course, is that homes are still more expensive than they were a year ago. Okay, sellers, your turn. The situation for you is a bit more of a mixed bag. The great news is you can still sell your home for a really high price. But, and this is a big but, you've got to adjust your expectations. With more competition out there, your house is probably going to take longer to sell. And that means pricing it right from day one is absolutely critical. If you overprice it, you risk just sitting on the market for months. So this brings us to the big question, right? After all this data, the high prices, the extra inventory, the slower sales, who actually has the upper hand right now? And the real answer is it's moving towards the middle. It's not quite a buyer's market yet, but it's definitely not the extreme seller's market we've seen for the past few years. It's becoming a more balanced market, and that creates totally new opportunities and new challenges for everybody involved. So when you have a market that's kind of pulling in two different directions, higher prices but a slower pace, making the right move requires a much smarter strategy. The report itself really hits the nail on the head. In a market that's totally one-sided, you might feel like you can go it alone. But in a shifting, transitioning market like the one we have right now, getting expert guidance is absolutely vital to make sure you're making the best possible decision. So as the report suggests, if you're ready to make a move, your best first step is to connect with an experienced professional who really understands what's happening in your specific neighborhood. Thanks for joining us.